complicated position or job to do. Because technically you have the majority. You have the majority. You see all the list of the member of Knesset, and you see you have 67 supporters. But when you are coming and checking that by the fact in a daily life, you don't have them. And you know that the Prime Minister of Israel needs to pass the vote of confidence every Monday. Every Monday is in a possibility of finish his time as a Prime Minister if we don't have the majority in the Knesset. So you see, and I remember when I was the chairman of the coalition and I was working with the Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, every Thursday we had a regular meeting, checking together the list. I tell him, I'm usually was saying to the Prime Minister, you should talk with this and that, because if not, he's not going to vote for us. And from Thursday until Monday, 5 minutes before the voting, you're still convincing people to vote for your coalition, for your government. And this is the way, and imagine to yourself how much time the Prime Minister of Israel needs to spend of survival to continue being Prime Minister. So that's why this organization is so important, and the idea of making the electoral reform in Israel is important for the future of the state. Because the fact that the political system in Israel is so unstable is influence our possibilities to actually handle with all the challenges that we have. Unfortunately, I must say that we missed opportunity, a very big opportunity to change and make the electoral reform in this Knesset. I want you to know that in this Knesset, first time, after a long, long year, we have a majority for making these changes. And I'm going to speak what kind of changes I believe that important to do immediately. But in the beginning, I want you to know that today in the Israeli Knesset, you have majority for a very important changes in the system. Because you have Likud that's supporting that, you have Labour that's supporting that, Kadima, and Lieberman party. So you ask me why it's not happening.
Why isn't it happening?
Thank you. It's not happening because you have today a coalition and a government that depend the voting of parties like Shas and the ultra-Orthodox and smaller parties that are actually against this reform. And because of that, Likud cannot vote for that, and Lieberman cannot vote for that today, and Labour cannot vote for that. So that's why we don't have majority. And it's a huge, huge mistake for all of us. If you ask me what is actually the main reason that it's important to form a united government in Israel, and a government that depends only by the biggest parties, is one of the reasons is to making these changes. So I believe that all the activities that we are doing and all the pressure that we are doing about making the changes in the electoral law in Israel is going to lead to some change. I'm still optimistic that it can be. And you know that we have some of things that we should do, but I think the first thing that we need to do to create a better political system in Israel is, first of all, to raise the minimum percent that you need to get into the Knesset. You know how many parties we have in Israel? Give me a number. 50? 50? No. 31.
It's actually
16, this is the number. 16, and I'm telling you, this is 16 too much. It's too much. We don't need all these parties. I always given the example United States that have so many people from all kind of sectors, and you have only two parties. Everyone can live in two parties. Why in Israel it cannot be? So we're saying it's not enough to get votes for 2 seats in the Knesset to get into the Knesset. You need at least 5. You need at least 6. And if we are raising this minimum percent, the result of that going to be that we're going to minimize the number of the parties. We're going to make some party to united, and it can help very much to the stability of the Knesset and in the political system. The second important change that we should do immediately is saying, and we Kadima believe in that even before the last election, that saying that the chairman of the party that got the most of the votes in the party in the election automatically became to be the prime minister of Israel, without necessary of coalition, of negotiations, of all these agreements and pre-agreement and all that. Automatically, the party that got the most of the votes, the leader of this party became to be a prime minister. And can make the change. And you know, in the last Knesset, actually, we was very close to make this change, but unfortunately, we called to early election and we didn't finish actually all the bill process. And this is two important changes that I believe that if we are doing that, after one or two elections under these changes, we stable the system, we make the system more stable, and then we can go to the next step. And the next steps is it's considered to actually make part of the member of Knesset, half of the member of Knesset, electing in a district, like you have in America. And this is the third step that we should do, but you cannot go to that if you didn't make the changes before. So because of our system, and I talk now about our system, you know that I'm from the Kadima party, Tzipi Livni party, and we got actually the most of the votes in the election, and still, because of our system, we find ourselves in the opposition. It's not easy to be in the opposition, but still, I believe that for us and for the country, it was the better decision to take, and it's important for the Israeli democracy that you have a coalition and you have also a strong opposition. And it's important to give to the Israeli people possibility of alternative, that they can have other parties that can be alternative for the government that exists today. In the last 10, 15 years, we didn't have it in Israel. We didn't have a real opposition. So I think the fact that the prime minister and this government know that they have alternative, that they have a strong opposition, it's influenced very, very much the way that they are actually acting. And when Netanyahu actually formed the government 1 year ago, he said that he wanted a united government. And one of the main conditions of Kadima was make the reform in the electoral law in Israel. If you're going to make that, at least that, we can be part of the government. But he said I cannot, because I have commitment to my other partners, to Shas especially. And that's why we didn't, this is one of the reasons why we didn't agree to join to this government. And even today, when people ask us why you are not going to a united government in Israel with Netanyahu, we said the only way to create a united government, it's only if it's a government that's based by Likud and Kadima, that Likud and Kadima agree about all the issues and decide what is the main principle that we're going through them to lead a government, and then all other parties can join to the government under this condition. This is the only way that you can make a real government that not only just to be in the government, but you can have the influence and you can make the changes that about, of course, the peace process and, of course, the electoral, the reform in the electoral law. So today it's very interesting situation in Israel. I believe that between September and December, I believe it's going to be some changes or some dramatic things can happen, because it's a very critical time. We are in the front of a situation and a question if it's going to actually be the direct negotiation between us and the Palestinians. And I want to tell you something. When we in Kadima speak about a two-state solution, we are not speaking about that because we are thinking about the Palestinians. We are thinking about ourselves, about the future of the Jewish homeland in Israel, and how to keep the Jewish majority in Israel for good. And I'm telling you, if we are not making the separation between us and the Palestinians, we're going to lose the Jewish majority in the future. No doubt about that. You know, you have today some Palestinians that actually come to us and say, listen, we see it's not going to happen, the two-state solution. Okay, so let's go now to a one state, two people, for two people. And I ask you, our fathers and all the people that fight for, create the homeland for the Jewish people, they really want a country like that? I prefer to have a smaller country, but a Jewish country for good, by the democratic way. And this is what we should do, not because of the Palestinian, we should do it because of us. And that's why it was our interest all the time to make the separation. You know, when I worked with Ariel Sharon and I was his advisor, I remember that one of his very tough decisions that he needed to take, it was the fact to create actually the fence between us and the Palestinians. And in the beginning, Sharon didn't want to do it. He didn't want to support that. But when he understands that if we are not going to make this separation between them and us, it's going to be one state. It's not going to be a border. It's going to make everything mixed. And we don't want it. That's why it's our interest to promote the direct negotiation between us and the Palestinians and create and make sure that we have the Jewish land, Israel, and we have the independent Palestinian state. But with all what I said, we have red lines. And one of them, as you know, the Palestinians have the demand of right of return. And this is something that I want you to understand. Their demand is actually saying that the refugees that left Israel after 48, after the solution of two states, can come back to Israel, to the Jewish state. And we say, why? We say, why? It's not logic. If we divide the country and we create a Palestinian state and a Jewish state, why the refugees want to come back to the Jewish state if they have their independent state? Why? So this is something that I want you to know, that in Israel we have full consensus that saying that we are not and going to be strongly against this demand. It's not going to be a right of return in any case, because if the solution is separation, it's going to be a real separation between us and them. And the second issue, of course, it's keeping, and we believe in Kadima, that in any agreement, we should keep the main Jewish blocks, like Ariel, like Gush Etzion, Ma'ale Adumim, other places, under Israeli control in any agreement. I want you to know that the Palestinians actually accept that. In the draft that was between Abu Mazen and Olmert, more or less the Palestinians agree and accept that and understand that Israel never going to evacuate these places. So we know exactly what is our red line. We know exactly what kind of area we want to keep in any agreement. We know what our opinion about the right of return. So after we know all that, we must, this is our interest, to make this separation between us and the Palestinians. The second reason why it's so important, because today the main focus should be only on the Iranian issue. Only about the Iranian issue. The Palestinians' issue never was and it's never going to be an existing threat for Israel. It's always a problem. It can be a problem in the future, but it's never actually threat our existence. The attention of the Iranian to have the nuclear weapon is a real threat on the existence of Israel. And if you ask me, it's not only a threat against Israel, it's a threat also against all the free world. And we try to explain, and we're doing whatever we can to convince the world leaders that Iran with a nuclear weapon going to actually influence all the Western world. And that's why it should be an international project to avoid them to have this weapon, and not only Israeli project. And until now, I must say, we support, and we think it's positive, and it can make the change, all the economic sanctions. It came now from, it started in America. America led it, of course, then Europe. It's good. It's good. This is part of the way to do it. But we have a limited time. We cannot wait and see what they're going to respond. We have a limited time. And in a limited time, it must be step by step, action by action, without hesitate, not to be naive, not to buy all the tricks and everything that come from the extreme regime that we have today in Iran. And it's not, our problem is not with the Iranian people. We strongly believe that the Iranian people is actually captured by this regime. The problem is this regime that try to have all this influence. And about influence, Iran, if Iran going to have the nuclear weapon, we hope all not, but if, it's not going to say that one day, it's not going to be that one day after they're going to use that. Actually, I believe they're not going to use it so fast because they know what's going to be the price of that. But they want to have the influence. They want to have the influence in the Middle East and in the whole world. They wanted to know that in any case, nothing can happen in the Middle East without the approval of Iran. They can say, as example, to Syria, you cannot sign a peace agreement with Israel. If you are going to do it, you know what we can do to you. And they can say to Egypt, if you are not canceling the peace agreement with Israel, you know what we can do. They want to continue supporting terror organization. They want still even be influenced in Europe, in Russia, in all the countries that are around the Middle East. We should do whatever we can to avoid that. And this is an international mission. And I believe that we're going to succeed in that. And I can tell you, no matter who is the prime minister, from Likud, from Kadima, from I don't know from where, any prime minister any government never going to accept the reality that Iran have a nuclear weapon. Never. Even if it's going to be only us. We are never going to accept that. We are never going to put again in a risk the existence of the Jewish people and the existence of Israel. Never. I'm going to leave time for questions. I have a few words to say, and then you can ask me a question if you want. About the Iranian issue, most of you are young people, so you have a lot of friends. You're active probably very much in the Facebook, internet, and all that. I'm telling you, be the ambassador of this issue. Speak with your friends, even if they are not Jewish. Speak with them. Explain them that. Wrote letters to congressmen, senators, all your people that you think can influence. I'm telling you, this is the main story now. This is why we should put everything on the side and deal only with that. That's why it's our interest to finish the conflict between us and the Palestinians. This is why we should focus only about the Iranian issue. Because it's now. It's happening actually now. And we need any help in this issue. Finally, I want to say some words about Israel and about the reality in Israel today. And we are always actually talking about the problems and about things that actually is all the challenges that we have. But probably most of you been in Israel, and I hope that most of you been in Israel. But I can tell you that Israel today became to be amazing country, really amazing country. You know, you're thinking to yourself that with all the challenges and with all the problems and with all the threats, it's amazing how after 62 years we create one of the successful countries in the world. By fact. You know that just, I think, a few months ago, Israel accepted to be part of the OECD countries. It's a very high-level organization, and only very successful country is part of that. And 1 year ago, I've been in Paris with a meeting of the management of this organization, OECD, and they told us, and they check Israel, you know, they are not Jewish, they are not nothing, that they came 5 years, check Israel from all the sides, from all the issues. And one of them told me, you know what always was amazing after we came back from Israel and sit in our office in Paris, and when we put all the details on the table, all the simple details on the table about Israel and about all the achievement of this country, and it was obvious, but every few minutes we talked about that this is a country that exists only 62 years. And this is a country that has so many problems. And this is a country that 40% of her budget go into security issues. And still, she has so many achievements. And I told them, you know why? You know that we don't have gold, we don't have oil, we don't have actually nothing. The only thing that we have in Israel is that. That's what we have. We have amazing people that always thinking about new idea, have a big, big chutzpah. They are not afraid from nobody. They always have initiatives. Our country always invest in technology, in high-tech, in education. The opportunities that you have today in Israel is amazing. Is amazing. And I'm so optimistic about our country. And I'm so optimistic about our future. We just need to remember all the time that we are strong not only because our army or because we have some things that others don't have. We're strong because our faith and because we all know that we are part of the Jewish people. And you know what is the main asset of the Jewish people? The main asset of the Jewish people is the Jewish people. That's what we are. That's what we have. We are not a lot. So that's why it's important. And I'm telling you, it's important to keep and to be connected to your Jewish roots and to the Jewish tradition